Have you noticed how much of our lives are spent trying to prove ourselves? We post our achievements online hoping for likes. We explain our decisions so people won't judge us. We even beg for recognition from people who don't really play any meaningful role in our lives. At first, it might look like ambition or confidence, but if you take a closer look, it's often a disguised weakness, a deep need for approval that keeps us chained to the opinions of others. Think about it. How many times have you replayed a conversation in your head, wondering if you sounded smart enough, successful enough, or good enough? How many sleepless nights have been stolen by the thought of what someone else might think of you? That's not strength. That's giving away your peace of mind to strangers. The Stoics offered a radically different perspective. They didn't chase approval. They didn't beg to be understood. They didn't waste their lives trying to explain themselves. To them, silence was not emptiness. It was power. Power because when you no longer need applause, you become free. Free to act on your principles. Free to live with integrity. Free to focus on what truly matters. Epictetus captured it perfectly when he said, "The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have." Think about that. The more we depend on recognition, the more we hand over the steering wheel of our lives to other people. And here's the truth. The approval you're waiting for may never come. Do you really want to waste your one and only life waiting for a round of applause that might never arrive? Here's the paradox. When you stop chasing recognition, that's when people actually start respecting you. Because strength doesn't scream, it doesn't beg, it doesn't explain. Strength stands quietly, rooted in principle. And that quiet confidence speaks louder than any speech ever could. So let me ask you, where in your life are you still chasing approval? At work? In your relationships? On social media? What would it look like if you stopped? If you chose silence over explanation, principle over applause? Maybe that's where real freedom begins. Not in being heard, but in knowing you don't need to be. The first, the power of silence. Silence is not emptiness, it's presence. When you remain quiet in a world where everyone is trying to outshout each other, your silence becomes louder than words. People start to notice, not because you force them to listen, but because you created space for them to feel your absence. And absence often echoes louder than presence. Think about the last time you were in an argument. The other person raised their voice. They tried to prove, to explain, to justify. But when you chose not to react, when you simply let the silence sit in the room, something powerful happened. They were forced to face themselves. Your silence became a mirror, reflecting their own behavior back at them. This is why Albert Hubbard once said, "He who does not understand your silence will probably not understand your words." The truth is, the more we explain ourselves, the less value our words seem to hold. Over-explaining is often a disguised plea for validation. It's a hidden way of saying, "Please accept me, please approve of me." And that desperation doesn't build respect, it erodes it. But when you know who you are, when your principles are steady, you don't need to argue for them. You live them, and silence becomes your shield. In the workplace, this is especially true. Imagine being in a meeting where tensions rise. One person dominates the room, pushing their point. Another tries to counter, raising their voice higher. But the leader who pauses, who listens, who lets silence fill the gap before speaking, That's the voice people lean in to hear. Not because of volume, but because of gravity. Silence carries weight. We live in a society that rewards noise. Social media is built on shouting louder, proving more, constantly broadcasting your life. But the strongest people don't always post. They don't always justify. They don't beg for likes or validation. They move in silence, letting their results do the talking. Because when your work speaks for itself, you don't need to. Silence is not weakness, it is restraint. And restraint is a form of power. It shows that you are not controlled by emotion, not dragged into every battle, not desperate to win every argument. You're choosing the higher ground. You're choosing clarity over chaos. And in that quiet space, you find strength that noise can never give. So the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, to prove your worth, remember this: silence is not a lack of response. It is a deliberate response. And sometimes it is the loudest answer of all. The second, silence helps us hear the truth. More clearly, silence isn't just the absence of noise. It's the doorway to clarity. In today's world, we're constantly bombarded by advice, opinions, and endless voices telling us what to do, who to be, and how to live. We ask friends for their thoughts. We scroll through social media looking for validation. And sometimes we even lose ourselves in the noise of other people's expectations. But here's the paradox. The more we chase outside answers, the further we move away from the truth inside us. Think about it. How many times have you been in a tough situation and immediately rushed to ask someone else what they thought? Maybe you asked a coworker whether you should take that new job. Maybe you called a friend to ask if you should stay in a relationship. And while their opinions can be helpful, at the end of the day, you're the one who has to live with the choice. And that inner voice, the one that often gets drowned out by all the noise, that's the one that already knows the answer. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." What he meant is powerful. It's not the outside world that causes our suffering. It's how we interpret it. And the only way to really hear your own interpretation, your truth, is through silence. Silence gives you space to separate your voice from everyone else's. It's like being in a crowded room where everyone is shouting, and then suddenly the room goes quiet. You finally hear your own heartbeat. That heartbeat has been there all along. You just needed the stillness to notice it. In relationships, this can be life-changing. Instead of rushing to text back during an argument, take a moment of silence, not to stonewall, not to punish, but to hear yourself. Sometimes the anger you feel isn't even about the other person. It's about an expectation, a wound, or an insecurity within you. And silence reveals that. In your career, the same is true. Many of us make decisions based on pressure. The pressure to earn more, to climb faster, to prove ourselves. But when you step back, when you unplug from the noise and sit in silence, you often discover that what you truly want isn't more, it's meaning. And that's something no outside voice can define for you. Here's the real secret. Silence is not empty, it's full. Full of answers, full of wisdom, full of direction. But you can only access it if you're willing to quiet the noise long enough to listen. So the next time you feel lost, instead of opening 10 tabs on Google or texting 3 friends, try this. Sit in silence. Breathe. Ask yourself, what do I already know to be true? you'll be surprised at how often the answer has been with you the whole time. The third, begging for closure is betraying yourself. Let's talk about something almost everyone has experienced: the desperate search for closure. After a breakup, after a falling out with a friend, after losing something that mattered, we tell ourselves, if only I could get closure, I'd finally be able to move on. And so we chase it. We text the person who hurt us. We write long emails trying to get answers. We wait for apologies that may never come. But here's the truth. Begging for closure is like handing over your power and asking someone else to decide when you can finally heal. And that, my friend, is a quiet form of self-betrayal. Because the more we depend on someone else to give us peace, the less peace we'll ever have. Closure, real closure, is not something another person can grant you. Think about it. The person who hurt you, the one who left, the one who disappointed you, if they had the wisdom or the compassion to give you the peace you're searching for, they probably wouldn't have caused the wound in the first place. Expecting them to come back and fix it is like waiting for rain in the desert. You could wait forever. Epictetus said it best. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. In other words, stop explaining, stop begging, stop hoping someone else will write the ending of your story. Instead, live it. Embody the strength you wish someone else had given you. Write your own ending. When you create closure for yourself, you take back control. That might mean writing a letter you never send. It might mean allowing yourself to cry, to grieve, and then deciding intentionally that this chapter is closed. Not because someone else gave you permission, but because you chose to. And let me tell you, this isn't just about relationships. It shows up in careers too. Maybe you didn't get the promotion you thought you deserved. Maybe you were let go without explanation. You could spend months replaying it, waiting for your old boss to validate your worth. Or you could give yourself closure by saying, that chapter is done. I don't need their recognition to prove my value. I'll create the next chapter myself. The irony is, the more we wait for closure from others, the more stuck we remain. But the moment you stop waiting and start creating, life begins to move again. Healing isn't about the apology you didn't get. It's about the decision you make today to stop living in the shadow of what hurt you and to step into the strength of who you're becoming. So the next time you catch yourself drafting that long text or rehearsing what you'd say if you ever got the chance, pause. Take a breath. Remember, closure is not something you receive. Closure is something you create. The fourth, silence reveals the truth that words often hide. There's a saying that has always struck me deeply. What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote that more than a century ago, but it's just as true today as it was then. Words are slippery. They can be dressed up, manipulated, used as masks. People can promise love, loyalty, or honesty with their mouths, while their actions tell a completely different story. Silence, though, that's different. Silence doesn't play games. It doesn't try to convince you of anything. Silence leaves space for the truth to reveal itself. When someone stops explaining, when they stop defending, when they just let their actions speak, it becomes impossible to ignore what's real. Think about it in relationships. Someone might say, I care about you, you matter to me. But if they consistently ignore your needs, if they don't show up when it matters, if their actions contradict their words, silence is what amplifies the truth. You don't need them to confess. Their absence, their lack of effort, their quiet neglect, it tells you everything you need to know. And here's the hard part. We often don't want to listen to the silence. We'd rather cling to words because words can be comforting, even when they're empty. Words give us hope, however false. But silence is raw. It forces us to confront reality without sugarcoating. The same is true in the workplace. Maybe you've worked under a boss who gave motivational speeches every Monday morning. They told you how much they valued your contribution, how the company was like one big family. But when it came time for a raise, or when you needed support, their silence said it all. No speech could cover up what their inaction revealed. That's the power of silence. It exposes the truth words try to hide. It's the pause between sentences where you suddenly realize who someone really is. It's the quiet after broken promises, where actions echo louder than any apology. And silence isn't just about other people. It works on ourselves too. How often do we say, "I'll take care of my health," or "I'll start that project"? But our silence, the things we don't do, reveals the truth about our priorities. Emerson was right. You don't need to announce your values. Your behavior already makes them crystal clear. The Stoics understood this long ago. They believed a person's character is measured not by what they claim, but by how they live when no one's watching. Silence, then, is like a mirror. It reflects back what words try to hide. It shows the gap between what's said and what's done. And here's the freeing part. Once you learn to trust silence, you no longer need to argue with people's words. You don't need to demand explanations or chase down proof. You simply observe. If their words and actions align, you'll know. If they don't, you'll also know. So maybe the next time you're faced with mixed signals, don't rush to interpret the words. Step back. Pay attention to the silence. Because in that silence lies the truth, clear and undeniable. The fifth not explaining is the highest form of confidence. Have you ever noticed how the most confident people rarely feel the need to explain themselves? They don't waste their energy justifying every choice, every opinion, every move. Instead, they live in a way that makes their confidence undeniable. That's the real secret. True self-confidence doesn't shout. It doesn't beg for approval. It simply is. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Don't waste what remains of your life speculating about your neighbors." And I'd add, don't waste your life defending yourself to them either. Think about how much time people lose trying to convince others that they're good enough, smart enough, successful enough. But confidence isn't about convincing. It's about knowing who you are so deeply that you don't feel the need to explain it to anyone. Here's the truth. Explanations are often rooted in fear. We explain because we're afraid of being misunderstood, afraid of rejection, afraid that silence will make people think less of us. But confidence flips that around. When you're truly confident, you trust that the people who matter will understand, and the ones who don't understand, well, their opinion doesn't define you anyway. Think about someone you admire. Maybe it's a leader, an athlete, an artist. The ones who truly stand out aren't the ones constantly defending themselves online, writing paragraphs in the comments or arguing every critic. They're the ones who move with purpose. They act, they keep creating, and their quiet certainty time you feel the need to prove something to someone, you hand them control over how you feel about yourself. But when you let go of explanations, you reclaim that power. You show the world, I know who I am. I don't need your stamp of approval. Of course, this doesn't mean arrogance. Confidence without explanation doesn't mean you refuse feedback or shut yourself off from growth. It means you live with such clarity in your values that you don't shrink under judgment. You don't crumble when questioned. You listen, you learn, but you don't beg to be understood. So maybe the next time someone demands, "Why did you do that? Why do you think that way?" Try this. Instead of over-explaining, just smile and move forward. Let your consistency, your integrity, your actions speak for you. Because at the end of the day, real confidence doesn't live in explanations. It lives in how you carry yourself when no explanation is given. The sixth lesson of walking away in silence. Think about the last time you had to walk away from something or someone. Maybe it was a friendship that no longer felt genuine. Maybe it was a relationship that drained you. Or maybe it was a job that suffocated your spirit. Most of us imagine those exits as dramatic, filled with anger, shouting, or long explanations. But what if the most powerful way to walk away is quietly? Silence has a way of cutting deeper than words. When you leave without drama, without trying to prove your point, you reclaim your power. You're saying, I don't need to fight. I don't need to convince. I've already chosen myself. That kind of quiet exit speaks volumes because it's not about punishing the other person. It's about protecting your peace. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." How true is that? Think of all the nights you've replayed conversations in your head, building up anger, imagining the perfect comeback line you never said. The suffering wasn't in reality, it was in your imagination. Silence breaks that cycle. It frees you from the endless need to win the argument that only exists in your mind. In America today, many people are caught in cycles of noise. On social media, at work, even at home. We think strength means being louder, having the last word, proving our worth in every argument. But what if real strength is the ability to walk away without needing closure, without slamming the door, just choosing silence, and in that silence, choosing yourself? So the next time you face a situation that tempts you to explode or to over-explain, try something different. Step back, say nothing, and let your silence become the statement. Because often the loudest message is not the one you shout, it's the one you deliver quietly by simply moving forward without looking back. Podcast closing script. My silence, my last word. So as we come to the end of this episode, I want you to pause for a moment and think about where silence shows up in your own life. Maybe it's in a heated argument where you chose not to shout back. Maybe it's in a workplace meeting where you refuse to play the politics game. Or maybe it's in your personal healing. Those quiet nights where you stopped explaining yourself to people who never tried to understand you. Silence doesn't mean you're avoiding life. Silence means you're living with intention. It's easy to react. It's powerful to choose restraint. Anyone can raise their voice. But it takes real strength to lower it, to step back, to decide that not every fight deserves your fire. And here's the beauty. Silence is not empty. It's full of dignity, full of clarity, full of self-respect. In silence, you hear yourself again. You learn that you don't need to explain your worth to those who refuse to see it. And you realize that the loudest statement you'll ever make doesn't need words at all. So the next time you feel tempted to defend yourself endlessly, or to prove your point in a battle that drains you, remember this: your silence may carry more weight than 1,000 words. Silence is not giving up. Silence is choosing peace. Silence is honoring yourself enough to walk away with your head held high. And if you take only one message from today, let it be this: my silence is my last word and my most powerful one. Let that phrase be your anchor, because in a noisy world that demands constant reaction, your silence can be your revolution. It can be your healing. And it can be the reminder that true strength isn't always about saying more, but about knowing when to say nothing at all. Your silence is not surrender. It's your final word, and it's stronger than any argument.